Okay, we are on to section 5.2, solving inequalities by multiplication and division. When you are solving inequalities by multiplication and division, solve like any equation. So decide what's happening to the variable and then do the reverse opposite, except, this is a big except, if you divide or multiply the inequality by a negative, you need to flip the sign. And I will show you an example of how to do that. But if you multiply or divide the entire inequality by a negative number, you are always going to flip the way that your sign is going. So if it's opening this way, it's going to be flipped to the other way. So let's start with example 1. It says b over 7 is greater than 25. Well, how do I solve for b? Well, what's happening to b is that it's being divided by 7. So in order to get rid of that division by 7, I am going to multiply both sides by 7. What's going to happen here is these 7s are going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with b is greater than 175. Now, in this problem, I didn't divide or multiply by any negative numbers, so my sign is going to stay the same direction it is. Pretend like this is 175. I would have an open circle on 175, and since b, remember to read your variable first, is greater than 175, it's going to be going towards the positives. Example 2. 2/5 p is less than or equal to negative 14. Well, if we wanted to solve this as an equation like any other equation, we would look at this and we would say, okay, well, to get rid of something that's being multiplied by a fraction, multiply by the reciprocal. So instead of multiplying by 2/5, we're going to multiply both sides by 5/2. Again, take note, I am not multiplying or dividing by a negative number, so there's not going to be any flipping of the sign here. What's going to happen here is this is going to cancel. I'm going to be left with p is less than or equal to 14, negative 14 times 5 over 2, which is negative 70 over 2. So p is less than or equal to negative 35. If I were to graph this, I would have a closed circle on negative 35, and I would be going to the left because p is less than or equal to negative 35. Let's go ahead and look at example 5. Example 5 says solve negative 5x is less than or equal to 135. So negative 5x less than or equal to 135. Okay, so in order to solve this equation as an equation, in order to solve this inequality, solve it as any other equation. Except for remember, if you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, you need to flip the sign. So, negative 5 times x, in order to get rid of this, I need to divide by negative 5. These cancel. And what do I always need to do if I divide by a negative number? Flip the sign. Do not forget to flip your sign when you divide by a negative number. Then we have 135 divided by negative 5, which is negative 27. This means that any numbers that are greater than or equal to negative 27 can be plugged into this inequality and it will work. I could pick 0. If I plug in 0, for example, because 0 is greater than or equal to negative 25, and I plug it into my original, I get negative 5 times 0, which is 0, and 0 is indeed less than or equal to 135.